Well, good morning. Welcome to our sales and solutions introduction here at Zyxel. Just do a quick sound check. If you can raise your hand, just let me know that you can hear me okay. That'd be fantastic. Thank you so much, Kevin Carnegie. Yeah, my name is Troy. I am one of the solutions managers, product managers here at Zyxel. So this webinar, basically we do it once a month, and it'll be beneficial to anyone who wants to learn more about who Zyxel is, what products we have to offer, and different solutions that can really satisfy your networking needs. So we're here to be your networking ally. So this webinar is going to be recorded, and you can view it online at any time, and especially after it's been posted. So if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A section, and I'll try to get to them while we're doing the presentation. If not, we'll try to get it at the end of the session here. So let's go ahead and jump in. Really, there's a lot of things we cover. We just kind of do a holistic view, a high level view of like pretty much all the solutions that we kind of have available to you as a partner. And hopefully what usually happens is you may only know of, let's say, one segment of the Zyxel products, but we have so much more. And so this sales and solution webinar will help to kind of open your mind to other things that Zyxel may have, and maybe get you to think about different applications that may be of interest to you. So let's go ahead and jump in real quick, and we'll talk about who Zyxel is. So Zyxel is, have been around. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary, so 30 years in networking. We were established in 1989. We have over 1,500 employees worldwide. We've powered over 700,000 businesses using Zyxel solutions. We are in 150 different markets around the world. And if you talk about devices, creating connections, we have over 100 million devices deployed worldwide. So our expertise is in areas such as telco. That's kind of where our bread and butter had existed, where we make a lot of the telco type equipment, carrier grade class products. I'm primarily focused in the business connectivity side, where we're dealing with network security, switching, wireless, those kinds of things. And then also we have products in the connected home as well. Pretty much my analogy is anything that's connected to a network, Zyxel has something for that kind of network. Now, we also take pride in our R&D capabilities with over 500 software and hardware engineers worldwide. We have over 150 technical support people around the world as well. Our US office has our tech support, US-based tech support right next door. So we have all the people here helping you with all the different solutions or any kind of technical issues you may have. But because we also have the software and hardware engineers, we are here to develop solutions. So feedback from partners like yourself goes into play when we're developing new functions, new features, and also new products. So we definitely value your feedback. So please take advantage of that. So you can see pretty much like a third of our workforce is software or hardware engineers. We offer a comprehensive portfolio of products, security appliances that do UTM, does sandboxing, all the traditional firewall functionalities, LAN switches, unmanaged, web managed, fully layer 2 managed with CLI, 10 gig fiber. We'll cover those as well. Wireless access points, wireless hotspot, gateways that provide you all that hotspot functionality and control, and being able to manage it multiple different ways, either via software, a VM software standalone, or in the cloud using our Nebula solution. So let's go and first talk about security. This is usually the kind of the hot topic that most people worry about is security threats. We hear about it all the time, where there are data breaches. There are information being lost. According to Symantec, 76 of the sites that were scanned have found to have some sort of malicious or malware vulnerabilities. And Google's reported an increase in attacks on those kinds of sites. So they get compromised, and then they could be a target for users going to them. 43% of cyber attacks are aimed at small businesses. So I think a lot of times we don't realize, as a small business, which is kind of our primary focus, those small businesses don't realize that they are also under the same attacks, same kind of threats that the large enterprise customers are facing as well. And every 40 seconds, a company gets hit with ransomware. And so there's estimated about 4,000 ransomware attacks that happen every day. So they could be, anyone could be a part of that statistic. 81% of the data breach victims do not even have a system in place, meaning that they, kind of take the approach that, well, if I'm not attacked yet, maybe then no one will attack me. And so that's kind of the poor way of taking a look at threat management. Now, ransomware attacks have also increased 36% since in 2017, and that's been increasing year over year. Now, cloud, what we offer is it's basically a solution in the security product line that it ranges from all different levels. We have VPN series, which provide you the encryption functionality, also SD-WAN, easy VPN. That's where the VPN series sits. The NSG series is our cloud managed UTM solution that works via our Nebula Control Center. The USG series offers you a full kind of all-in-one box for UTM solutions. Usually comes fully loaded with all the UTM features, and those can protect against all the different types of threats that are out there. And of course, we just released our newest line in this portfolio, our ATP series. That's our advanced threat protection. It's pretty much all of the UTM functions that you have grown to know and love, but also now has sandboxing, so it can block against unknown threats and be able to do that at a very high throughput rate. So just in general, some of the features that come with it, we're not limited to these features, of course, but just some of the ones that I want to highlight. Content filtering 2.0. If you have customers who are looking to block websites, different web pages, even HTTPS encrypted ones, if you want to block social media, video sites, things like that, you can use content filtering to do that. We offer a robust high security VPN encryption capabilities with SHA-2 encryption. In the boxes come with load balancing failover for multiple WANs. So if you have customers who are looking to upgrade their connectivity or add additional connectivity in order to provide redundancy as well as higher bandwidth pipes, then the products have that functionality already as well. Easy mode, just to help you if you've never used a Zyxel firewall before. It's kind of a wizard that helps you do a lot of the main functions, port forwarding, firewall rules, and things like that to get it set up in an easy way. Application intelligence, being able to identify, control, and categorize a bunch of different applications and know, let's say this is a type of traffic from a certain type of application, and then be able to control it by blocking it, by allowing it, by even prioritizing it, things like that. And also integrated with a wireless LAN controller, meaning that you can control a lot of our business class access points that typically are used in the standalone mode function, but then there are a lot of them that will be web or manageable by the USG. So you don't have to get an additional controller to do that. It can be all provisioned by the USG. Some of the products in the higher series models, we have things like high availability, professional grade high availability that allows for you to do passive active in case the hardware itself fails over. Link aggregation, so I'm taking multiple ports and kind of grouping them together so you have a bigger pipe going to, let's say, your switch network. And then you can manage a lot more access points, as well as do things like SSL inspection for deep packet inspection and doing all of the UTMs on those. That's typically not used a lot just because it's a little bit more cumbersome, but there are some applications that require that, maybe in the government or in financial that needs to use that. And then hotspot management, being able to use the USG as a hotspot gateway to do your, the terms of service. I agree to these terms before I go onto the internet. So for your guest network access, so all integrated into a single, box application. So the portfolio pretty much is from the feature standpoint is like what you saw earlier, but it ranges from performance. So it ranges from the lower end. You can see the USG 40 series. They're probably in the $200 range in terms of a product, all the way up to the higher end models like a USG 1100, even one more to the USG 1900, but it pretty much ranges in performance based on what your UTM needs are. We do have a very cool kind of a product selector for the security for wireless and for switches. Reach out to your sales rep and ask about that, that product selector tool. It's basically a cool spreadsheet that lets you pick, certain certain ports or certain applications, things like that, and it narrows it down to which product you want to go after. But of course, we're here to help you as well. And we believe that Zyxel wins in terms of with licenses and things like that. Zyxel's up to 49% more cost effective in that. And on top of that, which we are not even talking about or not even including in this, is that we also offer free firmware updates for the life of the product, lifetime hardware warranty, free support, and no support contracts. So all of that really adds up year over year. So if you're just comparing straight up, price, licensing, things like that, you're already getting a cost savings. But on top of that, the not having to get a contract or a support contract for the supports and for the licensing, that just adds to that it's kind of hidden value that people don't realize is there. And of course, if you have not yet created an account over at myzyxel.com, do that. But basically, myzyxel.com is a where you basically manage all of our licenses for the UTM services. So go there, myzyxel.com, make an account. It helps you to manage all of your customers. There is a link at the top. If you do not have it yet, there's a link at the top when you sign in, and it says like request for reseller view. Make sure you click on that if you are a reseller, and let your sales rep know so that we can approve of that. What it does is it gives you some additional reporting tools. It lets you get a better view of and how to organize and manage your customer devices. And on top of that, it allows for when you're adding maybe customer devices to the to MyZyxel, you can choose that. You could choose yourself, and you'll find your account name and be able to add that as the kind of the managing partner. That way, you can see and manage those licenses from your single pane on your side of things. Now, we also leverage and partner with some of the best kind of threat management companies out there. We've partnered up for antivirus Bitdefender, anti-spam and content filtering with Siren, and IDP and application intelligence with Trend Micro. And so we kind of leverage on their expertise to provide us with the signatures, with the information to power up our products. And so our engines will utilize those signatures to do that. A lot of the other competitors will do that more so in-house. And so we believe that we just leave the expertise to the ones that are focused on doing that, and we will leverage what their base knowledge is. And then we also have a feature that nobody knows. I mean, not as many people know. It may be becoming more popular now. It's called Amazon VPC. So we actually have the ability to connect to Amazon directly. If you have VPC, which is basically a sub cloud inside the AWS, you could build different applications like your web applications, your CRM, your database, your file storage, all in the cloud. In order to make that connection, though, you require a VPN connection. So basically, you need a firewall that can build this kind of certified VPN into that AWS infrastructure. And then we had to go through kind of a very stringent testing, compatibility testing, and also reliability testing with Amazon in order to get ourselves approved. So we actually are approved. We're listed with a lot of the other major players in terms of firewalls. So gateway devices that they've tested. So all you really need is 4.20 or higher. We are already at, we're coming up on 4.35 firmware now. So if you already have that, you already have these functionality. And so you have the advantage of taking advantage, you're able to take advantage of this feature and be able to connect directly to the AWS if you have those kinds of applications. Ray asked the question, is the hardware swapped out or sent advanced exchange overnight replacement if under warranty? It depends on the situation, Ray. And a lot of times if it's we do advanced replacements for our partners. So definitely work out with your sales rep on that, and we can always manage something. So yeah, we're listed there on the Amazon cloud. So the products that support it primarily are our VPN series. So the USG20 VPN, the VPN 50, just to eliminate confusion, the VPN 2S is just more of a small entry level kind of product that does not have that VPC, but it is part of our VPN series. But if you're looking for a kind of a lower entry cost for just a small office type scenario, the VPN 2S is perfect for that. But any of our USGs and VPNs that support the 4.20 or higher will have that VPC. And the VPN series here on the higher end, again, it's scaled. It's primarily made for the VPN connectivity. So if you have concentrator mode where you have an office with multiple branch offices, it's great as well. Or you could just do basic site to site or site to multi-site, depending on what you need. I wanted to talk about our ATP series. This is our new next generation firewall. And pretty much I think everyone will eventually want to and should migrate to this product line. And so there's a lot of benefits that come into play. It goes beyond the kind of the conventional UTM because it still has UTM, and UTM is just unified threat management. It looks at using signatures. It looks at existing heuristics, kind of reputations, things like that. But the ATP goes beyond that. It has to look at threats that are zero-day attacks. Now, there's a lot of attacks out there that are zero-day, meaning that the viruses or malware is produced that same day to go after a specific attack. And if the signature doesn't exist in your typical UTM service, then it's not, it's not going to analyze it. It's not going to be able to see it, and it's going to let it pass, right? Or it may, if you have stricter, maybe stricter settings, it may be able to block it if it's just unknown. But then there's a lot of false positives that happen, which then, causes usually traffic to not be able to work correctly. So you have to kind of go beyond that. So conventional UTM, like I mentioned, you have these signatures that are pretty clear cut. It's either known good, or mostly good, or it's something suspicious or definitely bad, right? And so you have to have those kinds of known signatures in order to make those blocks. But in the middle area, you can't identify any of that because it could be good, it could be bad, it kind of looks suspicious, or it's not even known. And so you can't really do anything with it because that could be your typical web traffic or some other application that's going through. So what do we do? So ATP kind of solves that, and it uses sandboxing and AI to really manage that. So we're able to kind of put aside, or at least set aside those kinds of threats and do some analysis and then figure out what it is. So we conquer those unknown threats. We are able to detect something that is unknown, send it to the cloud, and then basically the unknown becomes known, so that you're now having signatures. The heuristic databases are updated, and you can do that still maintaining high speeds. I think that's one of the biggest challenges right now in the small business area, is that the internet speeds are just getting super fast, compared to kind of the hardware for the firewalls and stuff like that. You want the full protection, but we all know that in order to get kind of full layer 7 protection, you need a very powerful device. And right now, a lot of the products that are out there in the market cannot sustain the internet speeds. And so we have to, the common solution is, well, turn off some of the features. It's my example of, hey, I just got a very high end, a security system, but because it's inconvenient for me to get into the door, I'm just going to turn off all the locks. Like it doesn't make sense for us to turn off these security features that are what is, being where the attacks are coming from outside, to be able to turn them off. It just doesn't make sense. So we're able to use sandboxing, if you guys have heard of that term, to do that. We basically send the information into the cloud. So we use cloud intelligence and AI to identify the threat. We analyze them in real time, and then we establish whether or not they are safe. And then we update our database, which then shares it across pretty much the entire cloud network of devices. So that way we can also learn, we evolve, and over time, we become basically stronger on how we analyze these. So just a little bit about what happens. Let's say, for example, there's a file that's unknown, or even like a Word doc or an Excel file, things like that. Could be unknown. And so it gets sent to the cloud. We actually will emulate that in the cloud, in the sandbox. We look at the packets, the patterns, we see what it does. And then we decide whether it is malicious. And if it's malicious, we send it to kind of the defense intelligence, where then the code of the signatures or the hash of that file is made available. And then that database is sent to the signature database, which then is updated to the cloud. So any other further attacks from that particular file across the board or the rest of the world will have visibility on that. So our ATP portfolio consists currently of 3 models, the ATP 200, 500, and 800. And you can see it's based on throughput as well, different port counts, but also the UTM throughput range. And that's where you want to kind of gauge yourself when you're looking at which product is right for you or for your customer. You'll notice the UTM, the UTM throughput of the ATP 200, it is 450 megabits. So I mean, in real world throughput, you're looking at probably 50 to 60% of that. So, say 225, 250 to 300 megabits per second is probably a safe bet. So that's with all the UTM surfaces turned on. So I know you guys probably already know that, in terms of that, the max theoretical throughput is usually the test case scenario for the best possible, meaning largest packet size, that kind of thing. So I usually take that as the gauge, but even then, for a 250 megabit UTM throughput, the price point for that is around $600, I think, for the whole package, including all of the UTM services, 1-year licenses, as well as management. And then, of course, you can scale all the way up to the ATP 800, which then does 1,200 megabits per second. So anywhere between, let's say, 600 to 750 megabits per second is probably a safe bet for that product. Now we do have plans for even a larger product in there, but you'll see that coming soon. So some of the licenses that come pre-bundled with the box, you cannot buy the ATP without any licenses, because it's then, if that's the case, then you're just getting a firewall. So you just buy a VPN series at that point. But here it comes fully bundled with that in that very aggressive price. It comes with the sandboxing, web security, application security, malware blocker, everything there you see. Geo Enforcer is something we didn't talk about, being able to block by IP addresses. You manage the maximum number of access points that that hardware can handle, anywhere from 18 on the low end all the way up to 130 access points. And the cool thing is that it also includes SecuReporter. I know some of you who have maybe have licenses in the or already have a MyZyxel account with devices there with security. You may have gotten an information email about a promotion that we're running. We're basically on those USGs, we're offering a free SecuReporter license for a year for the 7-day log retention functionality there on the USG, as long as you upgrade to the latest firmware, 4.3, I think it's 4.35, you can get access to that for free. And but the ATPs come fully bundled with that SecuReporter, and I have a couple slides on what SecuReporter is. ATP versus USG. If you're already familiar with our USG product line, this is what some of the differences are. Primarily, the UTM functions are the same. The ATP does have what we call anti-malware, which is a cloud machine learning database that the ATP has access to. So again, it becomes a little bit more sophisticated on what it's blocking. It has botnet filter. It has the sandboxing feature that I talked about earlier, being able to block zero-day IP and URL reputation as well. So if there are certain sites that have gotten compromised, we can see that within this database very quickly. It's got that the 0 days come in the next, I think the next iteration of the firmware for the ATP. The IDP throughput and the UTM throughput that's where the main significance difference will be as well. Whereas let's say on the USG, the equivalency for the IDP is the 210, does 666. The ATP 500 for IDP will do 1700 megabits per second. So the IDP throughput is quite, a lot larger for probably about the similar price. It has all the IPsec, VPN stuff, the HA Pro doing high availability. The only difference that the USG currently has that the ATP does not yet is the hotspot management. So if you're looking for kind of basic hotspot functionalities like Facebook Wi-Fi, guest network access, things like that, you can use the USG. Now, if you're looking more basic kind of terms of service, you don't have to do billing. You don't want to do tiered billing charges by credit card. Then the ATP will function there as well. So it still has hotspot functionality as you may be using for terms of service or user portal login. So if you have like a customer who just wants to use a login password to just get into the network or get access to the internet, they could still do it that way. The hotspot functionality, the hospitality functionality is more about doing more detailed function with the ticket printers, custom user guest network access for like time of day access, things like that. So SecuReporter is something, again, like I mentioned, what we offer to the customers here. And it provides you with reporting. It gives you an analysis. It captures the data over time and reports on a lot of the security functions, the threats, the traffic utilization, who's using what kind of, going to which sites, if you have content filtering turned on. So it really gives you a picture of what's happening on your network. And then also be able to do comprehensive reporting, alerting, and gives you some visual tools that you can check out there. SecuReporter also leverages the information from the cloud. So you're sending all this data into the cloud so you can connect and view all this information from anywhere you want. Now, all of your USG's hardwares now already come with a 30-day free trial of the full version. The full version is only, the only difference really is it has 30-day log retention or 30-day analysis with a 1-year log retention, whereas the free one that we are offering on our promotion is a 7-day log retention. but it still gives you 7-day analysis. So you can analyze basically for the last week. So at least you can see, what is going on. Now from the reporting tool functionality, you could still get monthly reports though, but just kind of from the live view, you're going to get the 30-day logs and 7-day analysis. One other function that our products have in our VPN series is something called SD-WAN. How many of you are familiar with SD-WAN? Because I think there's a lot of, from a definition standpoint, there's a lot of people who hear, there's a lot of things that can be called SD-WAN. If you have multiple load balancing internet connections, it could be considered SD-WAN. If you just do, web optimization, it'd be called SD-WAN. So what our product does is that we offer kind of the main definition. If you do a Wikipedia definition lookup of what is SD-WAN, this is what we're covering. We're covering the fact that you could do auto provisioning of the product. So launching up gateways for VPN connectivity, and also branch offices and things like that. It's all auto provision. So it's really kind of a zero touch provisioning. You can pre-configure that. So once it goes online, that device then is able to get its configuration and information needed to build those tunnels. Dynamic path selection, being able to use some real-time monitoring through that VPN tunnel to make sure that the data being transferred through those connections, through the VPN connections to the different offices, are of the best quality transmission. So being able to switch over to a different WAN connection and being able to send traffic through a second VPN that's built on another WAN, that's pretty much what the dynamic path selection allows. So just as the clarity, the dynamic path selection primarily functions with just inside as an SD-WAN inside the VPN tunnel itself, because we have control over what's inside and where that packet is going. WAN optimization, being able to improve the performance between the branch offices, again, choosing kind of the best path. Content filtering services, being able to block HTTP, HTTPS websites as needed. And again, application intelligence, we have this function here as well, being able to identify different protocols. And that's important, especially for SD-WAN. I think SD-WAN, primarily people use it for like VoIP applications to make sure that the packets of those voice connections replacing the MPLSs are optimized, right? So being able to prioritize and see that, hey, this is a voice traffic or this is Skype traffic, and see that very specifically, and then be able to prioritize and send that away. Dynamic mesh VPN. So this is another cool tool that lets you interconnect using our orchestrator in the cloud to connect multiple sites together. So let's say you have an office of let's say 10 sites. Usually when you build VPN tunnels, it's pretty cumbersome. You have to go to each one and identify, configure each one of those devices to match up so that they can talk to each other. Well, with dynamic mesh, it allows for you to pick all those 10 sites, say they're part of a group, and then you can even choose to dynamically direct the traffic so the tunnels will come up dynamically when needed in order to go to the different sites. So it will help with kind of overall traffic, overall bandwidth, and reduce kind of bottlenecks in the network. And all the products in the orchestrator is included, all of the VPN series models includes 1 year of the Nebula Orchestrator firmware option. So when you fire up a VPN 50, usually you'll get a choice between whether you want it to be standalone mode, which makes it a VPN 50 product, or you can go into the orchestrator mode, which then it becomes an SD-WAN supported product. So right now, I believe we offer still the 1 year SD-WAN solution when you buy the VPN series. So if you have already a VPN series product now, you can basically do a factory reset. If you needed to, you had a spare one to test out, you could switch it over to the SD-WAN to test it out. So you have to choose, and so you kind of pretty much have to choose the identity of the product when it first gets installed. So it gives you still that flexible option there. So I'd like to switch it over, pun intended, to talking about some switches. I think this is a really important topic here as well. Most networks, the main backbone, whether it's wireless or whether it's something else, the main backbone of most office networks is a switching network. And because this is kind of a new partner intro, I wanted to cover a little bit about our naming conventions. So on our switches, ES, anything starting with ES is our fast Ethernet switches. They're only up to the 100 megabits We don't have very many of those. Everybody's moved to gigabit. So that's where GS comes into play. GS is gigabit switch, and XS is the Roman numeral for 10. That means that all the ports support 10 gig, whether it's multi-gig, 2.5, 5, 10 gig fiber, or 10 gig copper. The XS is that. The XGS, you'll notice there's an extra G in there. The X is still 10 gig uplinks, but it's primarily a gigabit switch. The X is just kind of an add-on. So it's a gigabit switch with 1 gig ports with some dedicated 10 gig uplinks. Typically, they are just the 10 gig SFP fiber uplinks. And then we have also a series with this called MGS, which is our Metro Ethernet switch. It's usually a carrier, kind of a carrier grade switch. At the end of the naming convention, if there's a P or an HP, that stands for PoE, or HP, which is our PoE plus. It's our high-powered PoE. And then if it ends in F, then it's a fiber switch with fiber transceiver connectors. We also have some naming conventions that we say switch combo ports. That means that the port is flexible to have either a Ethernet, can either be used as Ethernet copper or as SFP fiber. So you cannot use both at the same time, especially if they are numbered the same. So you'll notice here this port number 9 as a copper and then port number 9 as a fiber. You can use one or the other. You cannot use both. For fiber ports, the SFP is the gigabit standard, and SFP plus is the 10 gig standard. We also have transceiver DAC cables. So for the 10 gig, we have a direct attached cable that can help you to uplink without having to make your own fiber or have to get your own transceivers. We have products that do that. So each one of those fiber ports requires some sort of module before you can use it and connect it to fiber. So if you're looking at more information on how to use fiber, just let us know. And then switch stacking. There's some of our switches that allow for you to do stacking. There's different types of stacking. We have some virtual stackings like within Nebula or in the standalone mode called iStacking. But then there's some customers who require some physical stacking. And stacking has the ability to manage it, under a single, as if it was like a single switch. So we have uplink ports and we have the LED indicators that can identify which switch is in, which number in the stack. And then on the PoE side, we have naming conventions. PoE, normal PoE is our 802.3AF standard, the 15.4 watt. All of our switches in the business class pretty much are the PoE plus class, meaning that it can support 802.3 AT standards with 30 watts of power. And then we do have another, like one switch on our surveillance camera switch that offers 60 watts of power. So it's our PoE plus plus, which is the 802.3 BT, or it's also called Ultra PoE. So we'll see more of that coming out as more and more applications may have that need, but we don't see it as much, mostly in maybe the IP camera space where they have a heater, kind of a product that needs to be powered in that pan tilt zoom camera. So the switching portfolio, a wide range again. We have some low-end kind of web managed things that just have connectivity, or up to smart managed and with and without 10 gig. For our partners, most of our partner base for a lot of projects, anything that needs some more sophisticated applications and things like that, the GS 1920 V2 series and above, like our 1930s and also our NSWs, these are primarily the bread and butter that our partners are currently buying and selling because of the ability to do Nebula and Nebula Flex, so being able to use free cloud as well as a paid, more full-featured cloud, giving you high-power POB budgets like 375 watts, options of 8-port, 24-port, 48-port, with and without PoE. Again, centrally managed through the Nebula Cloud, supporting things like STP, RSTP, multicast, IGMP, that kind of thing, for all those functions that you may need for VoIP, for video, for IPTV. A lot of those functions will be available here. So how do you choose between cloud or standalone? So we don't have to, we make it easy for you. You can have a choice between both, and you can flip-flop between them if you need to. If your customer demands, today doesn't need cloud, you can still install a GS 1920 V2 and use it in your normal, standalone way. Now, if you want to have visibility on the product, maybe you still want to have that visibility, you could always flip the switch or, install it from the day one to use the Nebula Cloud. So we have Nebula Flex, which lets you have a free visibility into the cloud, into our Nebula Cloud Control Center. And then you can upgrade to the full featured packet later on as well. So fully managed switches, we also have a full range of switches as well. If you're looking for doing things more like CLI scripting, that's primarily one of the biggest differences. Now we also have some more advanced functions for like security of the switches, the ports, and also automatic protocol functionalities to set them into VLANs, or even on our higher end, having some layer 3 functionalities like VLAN stacking, Q and Q, doing some static routings, policy-based routings, things like that on the higher end. So if you're looking for more of a higher end level application, this one may be of a fit. But I think most of our partners primarily gravitate to the 1920 series. The fully, on the even a higher end, we have layer 3 pluses functionality. So again, if you're looking for something that needs this, a lot of our customers who do buy the XS3800 use it mostly in like a data center setup, because it offers 10 gig uplinks. It's a full all 10 gig port switch. So it has 24 ports of different combinations. We have some set aside for multi-gig, meaning that it can do gigabit, 2.5 gig, 5 gig, and 10 gig on that same port. But then there are 16 SFP plus, there's 8 combo gigabit copper and SFP plus. So kind of a beefy product there for those kind of special applications. Now, one application that is very popular, and I'm sure you're already using now, because PoE is what powers, I think, small business networks nowadays. We have products on the low end, from unmanaged switches to web managed switches. So if you need some budget kind of just ports that power up things, but I primarily, focus on pushing people to the smart managed and fully managed switches, just because I like to, I don't know about you, but personally, I like to know what's going on the network if I have to. And having a GUI interface that lets me to be able to remote access, be able to remote manage, is the kind of the perfect solution. It gives me visibility on why is this port or this traffic not working. Maybe I can see that the AP is down, or maybe I could do a remote reboot of the access point, or remote reboot of the voice over IP phone, from my desk. I don't necessarily have to go find that physical cable and unplug it in order for it to work. Right? We have the ability to do that from a remote interface through the GUI, through the web interface. But not only does Zyxel have more power with all these high power budgets here, but we do it in a smart way. So we have more power to power up more devices in an intelligent way. We call it intelligent PoE, or smart power mode. We can monitor exactly what the product is actually drawing. So let's say you have an access point that is drawing some power. We can just allocate that as part of the budget. So that just allows for you to be smarter on how you use your PoE budget. We can control PoE on each port individually if necessary, meaning that you can prioritize it. You can prioritize power over another port in case something happens with the power. You can also do some scheduling as well to reboot the product, or to reboot the different ports, or even turn it off, just even from a security standpoint. Let's say in the office space, you're worried about wireless security because people are sitting outside the office building using your Wi-Fi somehow, or trying to hack your Wi-Fi in the middle of the night. So you actually can schedule it to turn off after office hours, and then turn back on when people come in. So it has that ability. Now, we also have a cool ability with that, is with scheduling. You can use that as a kind of a preemptive refresh. Every week, you can set like half of your access points to reboot, and then the next week you could reboot the other half, something like that. Be able to schedule that to just do kind of an AP refresh. So for example, in this example, we have an access point, one of our access points. It uses it uses some wattage. In classification mode, like most of other switches that are out there, they will classify them as a 30 watt, class 4 device. And so most switches will budget out 30 watts out of their budget. So if I was trying to, let's say, light up and power up 20 access points, it would cost me 20 times 30, which is 600 watts. I would need 600 watts of power in order to make that solution work. And so that usually is either very expensive, or you can't find a 600 watt. You have to go to like a 750 watt switch or something like that. But again, it's very costly. Now, using Zyxel's consumption mode, which is our smart PoE functionality, the device only consumes or draws 16 watts. So 16 watts times the 20 access points that we want to power up is 320 watts. So within the 375 watt power range budget that we have on our switch, we can comfortably power up 20 access points within our budget. So not only are you saving money on the product, the power, but you're using it more cost effectively. Now we have our 10 gig switches with our XS 1920-12. Those are all 10 gig copper ports with a couple of 10 gig SFP uplinks. We have our XGS 2200 series, or even our XGS 1930 series that offer gigabit ports but 10 gig uplinks. And then the 10 gig, these are also layer 3 switches that you saw earlier. Now, one new switch that we are announcing and we've launched and are currently available mostly to just our partners right now is our IP surveillance switch. Basically, our 1300 and 1350 series was designed and made primarily for this segment. Some of the challenges of the of the surveillance market is that a lot of the installers need somewhere to power up their cameras, right? So either they have to use a switch that comes with the camera, which typically are just OEM somewhere. It's not really a robust. They're not focused on switch networking. They're focused on just getting power to the devices most of the time. So a lot of the features that you may need from a now switch networking standpoint may not be there. There are also needs for a low cost, PoE switches, being able to be cost effective in the segment because you're looking at deploying a lot of these cameras. You don't want to have to deploy a lot of expensive switches. There are functionalities in subsets that some of the functions that could be really helpful. And so we've talked to a lot of our IP camera partners who do this kind of business, and we work with them to get feedback on what features and functions could be very helpful to them. And also, it's hard to support sometimes the non-PoE standards, but we support PoE standard PoE. So any cameras that use at least this PoE standard can be used for our product without having to use an injector. So the products that we have kind of two lines. One is an unmanaged version, and we have a managed version. So the 1300 is our unmanaged surveillance switch. They are higher PoE budgets than you would typically find in just your off-the-shelf kind of low-cost unmanaged switch, right? You'll see that the 8-port here has 130 watts of power for the 8 ports. And it also has something that's really cool. I'll talk about it and I'll explain why you see those dip switches, those little toggle switches on the device. But we have a 16-port version, which we actually never had like a 16-port PoE device. And so those numbers, the 8, 16, and 24, are the typical numbers that we've found from our partners. That's kind of the bundle packages that they get from the camera vendors. So those little toggle switches allow for you to manage, or at least control or turn on, what we call extended range. Extended range is kind of a standard based that allows for you to do, you need to have the hardware to support it, not only the hardware, but also the software to push data and power beyond your typical 100 meters. So your typical Ethernet connection only uses 100 meters on Cat 5, Cat 6. But we can go 250 meters at 10 megabits per second. So of course there's that trade-off, right? You need to go further, but your throughput data transfer is going to be less. But for IP cameras, that's great because now, currently you're having to put like some sort of PoE extender or something like that in order to kind of become a middleman or switch in the middle somewhere that then you can power up something that goes beyond that 100 meters. So this really helps. It just gets you past, in some of those deployments into those harder to reach areas to be able to go instead of, 325 feet or so, all the way up to 820 feet. And they're available both in the managed and unmanaged version. So the unmanaged, like I mentioned, have those little blue toggles that turns it on or off. It turns on which ports turns on. And in the managed side, the cool thing about the managed switches is that any of the ports can be extended ranged. So you can change any of them via the cloud, via the GUI interface. On the lower end, we actually offer a 60-watt mode. So we also support the 802.3 BT. So in case it only has a 60-watt budget. So if you have one single device that needs 60 watts of power, you can dedicate this switch, a low-end switch that has just 5 ports, to doing that function if needed. But then again, all the way up to 375 watts in the 24-port switch range. One feature that's added in the managed function, managed switch, is what we call continuous PoE. This means that even if you do a configuration reload, a configuration file change that usually requires a reboot of the device, if you factory default it, if you do a firmware upgrade, or if it crashes and does some sort of abnormal reboot, the power will still remain to continue powering up the the IP cameras. That means that the cameras don't have to go through their reboot, right? So it keeps them alive, keeps them there, so that when the switch comes back online, data continues to flow back through again. It can also check the camera status, meaning that it can use information to check on the power draw, the health of the camera, whether it's there or not, the system name of the camera. It even has the IP address, so you can usually click through to that, and it will click over to the IP address that it's detected on that side of things. And so you can manage your cameras fairly easily through this interface. It also has, because we are looking at the camera health as well, an auto camera recovery function, meaning that if it detects, it will poll the device, and if it detects, some sort of downtime, it will then attempt to reboot the camera automatically. And you can configure and set up a lot of the different parameters that you see here on, how many times, the polling. We've even gone as far as even making a kind of a delayed reboot time, right? So we can let's say turn off the PoE power. We can wait 10 seconds for all the power to discharge, and then resume the power back on after 10 seconds. So we have that that configurability in there, so you could tweak it how you want, depending on what your devices you're using. We've also enhanced the surge protection in these products as well, up to 4 times electrostatic discharge, and 2 times the protection. Sorry, 4 times the surge protection, and 2 times the electrostatic discharge protection on these switches, compared to other switches that we have. So we've really enhanced it for this functionality and for this kind of application. So the surveillance switches, again, unmanaged is going to be your more cost-effective switch offering. And if you want things like higher surge protection and things like that, with the flexibility of doing extended range on all ports, then the managed version is there. And also, one thing to note, next year we are going to flex this product, meaning that we're going to be able to use Nebula Flex, so free cloud, with the 1350 series, as well as upgrade it to the enhanced full-featured Nebula as well with license. We design our products with reliability in mind, meaning that we use, again, stronger protection for the ports. We have auto fan control to be able to minimize and make the fans last longer. We also use very high quality fans as well. We use solid state capacitors, and use different types of power noise filters to make sure that the power is clean going to the device, making, again, sure the device doesn't fail. Especially the capacitors, the solid states last a lot longer than your traditional saltwater capacitors. High quality power supply makes sure that the power that's coming in, again, is highly functional and that it doesn't fail. So that's why we can offer a lifetime warranty on a lot of our, pretty much all of our business class products. Okay, so on the wireless side, just real quickly, we want to cover, we have a full range of wireless products as well, right? Anything from 2x2, you need AC, you need in-wall mount, you need smart antenna technology, you need outdoor. Zyxel has something that can fulfill that, both as a standalone, as a cloud controller, or in the Nebula cloud. So we have products, again, that can fit any of these management applications via standalone, Nebula, or controller modes. And again, we take the same kind of pride in our design. We designed it with quality and coverage and performance in mind. So we've really tuned the product, making it really robust. You can see how, if you've ever opened up a competitor product, you'll notice a huge difference on our shielding. We have shielding in the back there. You can see on the PCB itself, all of the components, all the wireless radios and things like that, they're also shielded. It's sitting on, below an antenna array that is also shielded, right? So we've, again, taken pride in how we've done that. We've optimized how the solution works. And so the benefit is that you get better coverage, better, better performance, and longer lasting product overall. Now, Nebula Flex is the same thing, just like the switch. Whether you want to use these access points in standalone or in Nebula Cloud mode, we have a product. These are the product lines that have that flex capabilities, and we continue to add functionality to even some of our older models. So if you have some of the older access points, reach out to the sales or to our support team to see, hey, which products does my product have that, and maybe you can upgrade to the next firmware that gives you Nebula functionality. Now, I wanted to talk and cover about our smart antenna technology. This is what makes some of our access points really heads above and different from a lot of the competitors that are out there. So what is the main issues with wireless? It's something called co-channel interference. And co-channel interference is like kind of a bad highway that's merging all together with no kind of merging lanes and no lights, things like that. So the traffic itself is just kind of coming in and getting, they're having collisions, right? So any collisions is a resend, meaning that it has to try it again. And it just, overall, for wireless, it gives you bad connectivity. Even though signal strength is very high, but actual throughput or actual usability is almost unbearable. So the way to deal with co-channel interference traditionally is to turn down the power. So you change your power output, so you reduce the size of the coverage area, and thus reducing the size of your noise that you're passing between two access points that are close to each other. But unfortunately, that gives you a dead area, right? You still have interference, a little bit less interference, but you have no coverage in the middle. So that's where co-channel interference is, being affected there. So what does smart antenna do? So smart antenna uses a technology, it's a patented technology to reduce interference. It increases the coverage and thus increase the capacity capability of it, because it's doing it more efficiently. So this is how smart antenna kind of works. So your traditional antenna has like an omnidirectional, so it kind of covers all around. It also may have some, directional antenna functions that are pointed in a certain direction. But what smart antenna does is it actually goes through, scans for the client, and then intelligently selects from over 700 different optimized antenna patterns and finds what is most optimal. So in this particular case, let's say the microwave or something like that is some sort of interference. You can see that not only the send, but also the receive sensitivity is focused towards the client, and thus ignoring or mitigating what it hears from whatever's causing the interference. Now, of course, if the client is moving, because we don't have static people around here, they're moving around, roaming from different places. So the access point will continue to find what is best and optimal for that in its communication. So what it effectively does is that it makes it, much better. And one of the third-party independent researcher group in the University of Brescia in Italy actually decided to do kind of a research on how does smart antenna technology, what does that really do for access points and for wireless in general. So they actually surprisingly chose Zyxel, Aruba, Ruckus, and Cisco to do their test. And only 2 vendors have the smart antenna technology, which is Zyxel and Ruckus. And so they kind of went and did a comparison. They had a lot of different scenarios. You can look that up. Just Google the University of Brescia and do Zyxel, Wi-Fi, and it probably will show up there as a report. But what we found out is that actually Zyxel surprisingly outperformed all its competitors, especially in eliminating co-channel interference. So up to 70% of that. So we were very effective on mitigating that co-channel interference. Kind of not surprisingly, but surprisingly, but not surprisingly, right? We're kind of a vendor who nobody really would know about, yet we were able to outperform some of even the most known competitors out there in this document. And so it's fantastic that we take pride in our design, in what we do. And so seeing the results of that it's very positive. So these are the lines that have the smart antenna technology. So again, if you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out to us. And I think pretty much the last topic that I want to talk about and something that I want to keep in your mind is Nebula. I know in each one of those other products, we talked about Nebula or Nebula Flex, but what is Nebula? Nebula is our cloud central system that allows for you to manage, provision, control, get visibility, install everything you need to do inside the cloud. So it's really easy to install. You just have to plug the device in. You just have to register the device via the web GUI or using our app. And then you just have to configure the device or assign it to a certain site and it will get its configuration. Now, the cool thing is that you could do this pretty much in any order. You could log in the device and pre-register the devices before you even configured the device, or you can already have configured the device for the site. And it gives you some pretty cool applications, especially if you want to be a managed service provider or you want to do installation services for your customers. You can set it up without even unboxing it. So literally there are some QR codes that are on the side of the box that let you scan it with the app, be able to add it to a certain customer site, and then ship the box off, right? You can pre-configure the site or even make cookie cutter sites and be able to apply and clone them to a new customer. Scan 3 devices. Now you have a switch, AP, and a gateway. Put them in a box, ship it to the customer. As long as whoever on the other side, it doesn't have to be a network engineer with CCNA or anything like that. They could just be somebody who could physically plug in the gateway to the internet connection, the switch into the gateway, and the access point into the switch, right? If they can follow those instructions, they could get the devices online automatically. They will then call home to the Nebula Cloud and say, hey, who am I? Who do I belong to? And then within those few clicks there, it will then download the latest firmware. It will get the configuration file that you've already configured for it. And then bam, in a few minutes, it's back up and it's online. And then now you can see it in the cloud interface. So you can manage it from anywhere. You can use it any kind of browser. So meaning that you could be sitting on the top of a mountain. As long as there's internet access, you can have visibility, control, monitor your network. And of course, your customer can be given that same visibility. You can set up different kind of access levels so that your customers can view certain things but cannot change it. Or you can set it up for certain technicians to have access to certain groups or certain sites. So let's say you have even though you're doing the cloud management side, they may have an on-site IT person that you want to give visibility or access to just that site or to just that organization. So it has that ability to do that in the, and a lot of these features that I come to talk about, it's more so in the full version of Nebula, so the professional version of Nebula. We do have the free version, so it has some limited subset. So if you do have a free product or free Nebula device that's in there, you'll notice that in the GUI as you're surfing around, there's certain functions that are grayed out, and it says more, add more. You need to have the Pro Pack in order to get those access. Okay, and being able to manage it all in one place. You can do multi-tenant views. So if you're an MSP, you can set up multiple organizations, meaning multiple customers, and each one of those organizations can have multiple sites. So it could, basically it's a tier level, lets you do it even from a visibility standpoint. Multi-tier view and a dashboard. See, so you can see the different types of applications, what's being used, who are the top clients that are using the connectivity, the bandwidth that's being used, the APs that are up and down, gateways and switches. So it gives you kind of that whole view. And it also has guest captive portal built in as well. So you can accept terms of services and things like that to get online. And so be able to use those kinds of Wi-Fi connectivity. And then last thing on the board is our partner program. If you have not yet been a partner or not part of our partner program yet, I advise you to join. We have our bronze, silver, and gold with different qualifying sales. It's really a low kind of entry level point in terms of what you have to sell. You only have to sell 6K in half a year. So that's just 1K a month in terms of product in order to meet the silver standard. But it gives you 16% off at distribution discount. So definitely, I believe our current promotion is that when you sign up, if you haven't signed up yet, you're in the silver tier level. But you want to move to the gold level as fast as possible because it gives you an additional 4 points of margin and some additional access to that. But you can find more information on that on our partner site. Go to vars.zyxel.com and take a look at that. So that is all I have today. I know it's kind of a overwhelming kind of slide deck in terms of a lot of information, but hopefully something there has caught your eye and something that we could work with you on. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. My email address is tri at Zyxel.com, and or reach to your sales rep to reach out. We're here to help you if you have any projects, solutions, trying to figure out what products will fit best in your scenario. Let us know, call us up. We'll get on board, talk to your customer, help you out to find out what is the best solution for that. So we do that all the time for our partners. So I don't think we're going to take questions tonight because we kind of hit our time limit. But again, thank you again, if you have any questions offline, just send me an email and I will get to them as I can. Thank you so much for being a Zyxel partner or looking to be a Zyxel partner. I hope that we can be your networking ally soon. We have some other webinars that will be coming up, so just keep your eyes out on that. Hope to talk to you again sometime in the near future. And thank you for your time. Have a great and wonderful day.